Story 1. I hate it, and I hate that he and Musk are acting like monarchs with minimal pushback even more. My only hope is that they break things so fast that the uninformed populace that elected him will start to notice soon and apply upward pressure that gives someone in power the backbone to say no and refuse their asinine requests, which is probably unrealistic. Story 2. Honestly, I'm only surprised by how fast it has moved and how much our congressmen have completely ceded power. To somewhat quote another poster, we have lived in a gilded age where business oligarchs ruled before and people survived. Personally, I can weather this, even if it is difficult, and am taking active measures to support my more vulnerable family when the time comes. I'm old enough to remember the lessons of my Depression-era family. We're stuck with this until his voters feel the pain and push back themselves. We're not there yet. There are a ton of Facebook and Twitter posts that say, I voted for Trump, but my spouse, friend, or relation has just lost their job. Farm is at risk. If you read even the most negative posts, you'll see people clinging to their support of Trump and just begging him to make the specific exemption. Story 3. I moved here when Barack Obama was president. I felt like America was a progressing country with its quirks. I'm British, so there will always be things I never understand culturally. People were friendly, and while they disagreed about things, it never made them bitter enemies. Fast forward to today, and I see extreme groups in full force and a country trying to race into World War III because the irresponsible ones could get away with it, and the so-called knowledgeable ones chose to sit on the couch. I hate it here. Story 4. Over the next few months or so, we are about to see the true power of the federal courts. Not the Supreme Court of the United States, but the lower federal courts, and specifically the power those federal judges individually hold over actions of the executive branch. Those judges, by design, are appointed to lifetime terms, meaning they are free from everyday political pressures that the rest of Washington is subject to. They are not beholden to an administration that is currently in power. All by design. Does that mean the judge might have certain hardline political views? Maybe. Does that mean the judge might have an agenda? Absolutely maybe. But that judge, individually, still is not toting a current political party's line. They are judging based on their own judgment. And if they do step over the line, there is an appellate court that will see through it all. The current strategy of the Trump administration is to test the limits of their power, something no recent president has really tried to do. They mostly stuck to traditions. They are that basketball player that keeps fouling and playing dirty, seeing how far they can push the limit before the referee brings out the whistle. And then when they get called for an obvious foul, they whine nonstop about how biased the referee is, as do all the fans of that player's team. But at the end of the game, the referee is still in control. And we are about to see the federal judicial branch flex its muscles like it has not in a long time, if ever before. Story 5. It's disgusting, and he is disgusting. He is a shameful, inhumane, adjudicated sexual assaulter, racist, and grifter. He is a king in his own tiny mind. What he is doing by dismantling government and our democracy, along with the space freak, is unconscionable. He is a criminal, and to think people were so ignorant to vote for him when he is such a profound liar is beyond comprehension. Republicans need to grow a spine, but they are so enamored or afraid of him they can't. It's sick, really. He slithered in for a second term, a shameful, heinous miscreant and deviant. He is no king but a mere court jester and utter clown. Story 6. Terrified. It's not him as an individual. It's the mass of acceptance behind him. We voted. All of this was spelled out. He continues to show exactly who he is, and half the country is on board. I really feel like the only path forward is violent revolution. It's devastating, but it also feels a bit like the Twilight Zone as I'm expected to go to work, service clients in my well-paid job, etc. I think a lot of us just feel powerless and at a loss when there is this mass of our fellow citizens who are supportive of these actions. It's like you keep waiting for the bridge too far, but there isn't one, it seems. I have a family, and I feel like I need to continue to ensure their financial and physical security, show up to work, pay my bills, etc. I don't know how we can make it to the end of this term without real-life impacts, though even within my insulated bubble. It's also just so challenging because this mass of supporters includes close family, and despite years of speaking with them, there is no way through. It comes down to a lack of education and critical thinking ability, media literacy, and magical thinking in the case of my loved ones, versus any true evil or malice. It's rough. Story 7. The United States is heading for a Trump-induced economic calamity. And when that happens and there is nobody else but the king to blame, it will not be pretty for anybody, especially not this so-called king. Story 8. I am surprised that people are surprised. He tried to overthrow the country 4 years ago and then stood in front of the Supreme Court and argued that he should be above the law. What did people think he was going to do? Story 9. Nobody who has been paying attention is surprised. In fact, most of us are exhausted. It is hard not to feel schadenfreude for the face-eating leopard party. Story 10. It is about as anti-American as you can get and goes against the very concept of how the United States was born. I have lost faith in our government. It seems like there is no going back to democracy at this point, and there needs to be a movement by the people. Story 11. I think that a minority of Republicans will see him for what he is. I hope a majority does. I consider myself in the middle, leaning right, and the guy is not fit for office. Give me Biden back. Story 12. Uncomfortable and irritated. Mostly directed towards the millions of people who just chose not to vote. Those who voted for this came as no surprise. It's shocking how many people didn't vote and how many of those same people have the audacity to complain. Story 13. Tacky and immature, but it's doing exactly what he wants. Making people that hate him freak the heck out. That's just how he is. He loves pissing off people that don't like him. Fuels him. If Trump could figure out a way to turn the hate and resentment of his critics into a liquid, he'd inject it directly into his veins. Story 14. They dismantled education and tapped into blind faith soldiers who believe their every word to fight for them, while having the money to buy everything. I'm not too thrilled. I spent most of my life wondering how Germans allowed something so obviously evil from Hitler, and now I know. Story 15. I am opposed at every turn. I will call Republicans who voted for Donald Trump morons. I will continue to call it the Gulf of Mexico. If immigration and customs enforcement shows up in my community, I will yell La Migra over the loudspeakers. I will continue to call Donald Trump and Elon Musk dumb idiots who are also traitors. I did not vote for Donald Trump because I believed him when he said he was going to destroy America. I am choosing not to buy certain products or subscribe to certain social media sites. I intend to be a nuisance and get in the way at every turn. This is not okay, and I will never stop doing everything I can to throw a wrench into the system. Story 16. I feel that my freedom, my future, my choice, my health, and my life are in danger every hour of every day with him and people like him in charge. Everything new that comes out regularly is making it much worse. Story 17. The last month, I'm alternating between feeling outraged, disbelieving, anxious, nauseated, galvanized to fight, and just too tired from working full-time while taking classes. I'm furious at the people in my life who voted for him. I'm a queer transgender person, luckily a bit buffered in a deep blue state, but it feels like this monster is just hovering over my head at all times and slowly dismantling everything I thought I could trust. Story 18. Him and his army of cronies can suck my nuts, totalitarian assholes. They hate the educated, they hate the environment, and they hate anyone not white for existing. They are annihilating any goodwill we had as Americans, and the good people here are stained by his existence. I wanted to take a honeymoon with my wife to Scotland, and neither one of us feels safe traveling at the moment. Story 19. It sickens and terrifies me. This is the slipperiest slope. And if the guardrails were tested during his last presidency, then they are being obliterated this time around. They had time to plan and install and supercharge their run to fascism faster than ever before. I am afraid it will get much, much worse before it gets better, if it gets better. And it will not be easy. Story 20. If I posted what I really feel, I would be banned. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are actively harming the United States population, and his vile supporters lap it up like the pathetic cucks they are. Story 21. I have memories of people saying President Obama was going to declare himself as king. I don't think they are as upset by this as that would have made them, for some reason. Story 22. It's the most disgusting, disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. So utterly un-American a thing. I'm so extremely disappointed in my fellow Americans who did not see this coming, and I'm furious at those who welcome this. It's likely that this will all end with bloodshed. All the progress, all the work built by my ancestors utterly destroyed by greedy traitors. They will have to pay severely for these crimes. But I know it's going to get worse before we fight it back and restore liberty and justice. I hope the world helps us restore our nation and we can return to make true the promise of freedom and democracy. Story 23 makes him a literal traitor. If you had to boil down American values to one thing, it's no kings. The founders were clear on that many times over. As far as I'm concerned, he just declared himself a traitor to the nation and invalidated his legitimacy as president. Those who save the nation from traitors commit no crime. Story 24. I think the United States as a democracy is finished. Republicans would not expand the power of the executive branch in this way if they ever had the intention of a peaceful transition of power in a legitimate election. This means they have every intention of retaining absolute power by illegitimate means. Story 25. The United States is over, and at this point, people are deluding themselves if they think this will work out. His constant remarks are just nonsense of the day. Every day or multiple times a day, he says something outrageous to control the narrative and distract people from what is really going on. Story 26. I'm excited. It seems that my prediction was correct. Conservatives are the dog that finally caught the mail truck, and Donald and Elon are the jaws that won't let go of that bumper until the body is broken and battered by the pavement. They are going so fascist so quickly and with such blatant disregard for any potential obstacles like the law, public perception, insufficient or incompetent staffing, party consent, etc., that they are absolutely going to crash and burn. It's pretty bad when you're so blatantly corrupt and authoritarian that federal judges turn against you. And maybe, just maybe, in the aftermath, we can finally change the rules that led us here. At the very least, I'll be able to gloat over my Republican family so much. Story 27. Hate it, but I also hate every single criminal act he got away with. Every safeguard against him failed. So, he rightly assumes laws do not apply to him. I do not see anybody doing a single thing to stop him. It is beyond baffling, but here we are. Story 28. Honestly, it really feels difficult. I was just getting my life together, and it feels like I'm watching any chance of it improving slip away with nothing I can do to stop it. I'm lucky I live in a very liberal state, and I feel even worse for those who don't. A lot of my family members think he is playing some multidimensional chess with what he's doing and believe he'll save us. Some even think the billionaires are helping the working class. I've already cut contact with most of them over these beliefs. Either way, they're acting irrationally. I don't have any way out as I'm still in school at a later age than most, working full-time on top of that. I'm already boycotting companies that supported him and know I'll have to protest sooner rather than later. But I'm just really scared for my own and everyone's future, honestly. Story 29. I'm struggling with deciding if I'm thinking too extremely. To me, it's like all hell is breaking loose and it disrespects the graves of everyone who fought for our right to vote. So many people support it, though. So, is this the America people want? Reddit is pretty against it, but people are all acting normal in real life. It's making me feel like I'm too obsessed with it and I should stop reading about it so much. But there's so much pointing to our democracy crumbling that I can't. It's even hard to not feel for poor supporters because some of them just don't pay enough attention and are uninformed, and so many of them hurt and suffer and just want a glimmer of hope. Obviously, many are just bad people, but not all of them are. Story 30. I'm thinking yes, the pilgrims and settlers who colonized America, escaping the British monarchy, did indeed die for this woo-hoo. Story 31. He is a despot and a dictator who does not believe he needs to follow any rules and certainly not the Constitution or abide by separation of powers because kings do not have to do so. Story 32. At some point, things are going to go really bad in this country. We may already be in a difficult situation that seems bad right now, but it will get worse. So, Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Story 33. I feel sick to my stomach. As an American, I've become used to expecting gun violence and terrorism, but I didn't expect democracy to be destroyed this quickly by a bunch of wealthy maniacs. I did not vote for this. I am convinced the election was tampered with in the swing states. But we will not have a monarch. In my opinion, America will tear itself apart before we allow that to happen. It won't look like a traditional civil war, but there will be an upheaval very soon, I am predicting. Story 34. It's bad and plainly anti-American. I wish a meteor fell on the dude or Congress had the ethical and mental fortitude to impeach the guy and throw him in jail for life. Story 35. It's a mass troll of us on the left, and it's working. The founders gave us a framework and provided the instructions in the Federalist Papers to check executive power. Functionally, he isn't a monarch, and both sides know it. But we'll play the strange news cycle where we accuse him of being a monarch, and they continue to troll us. It's all a giant waste of time.